Live on Joy 99.7 FM, Love 99.5 FM in Kumasi, myjoyonline.com. Good evening and welcome to News Night. Tonight, NDC government's plan to reintroduce regional and district tribunals to handle criminal cases stokes controversy at Parliament Appointment Committee, but Attorney General-designate says there is no cause for alarm.
We want to go back and align with the internal logic of Article 125, Clause 1, that there must be participation by ordinary people in the administration of justice.
We have details as he puts up a spirited defense for the oral committee set up by John Mahama, despite the contention by some that it is an unconstitutional creation.
Oral is supposed to exact accountability from persons either politically exposed or persons holding public office who used or misused their office.
Plus, a focus on Minority Leader Alexander Afenyo-Markin's attempt to steal show at the appointment committee sitting yesterday with his persistent challenge of the authority of the chairman and clashes with NDC MPs on the committee.
You're right, no problem. You will listen to me, Chairman. You can't say out of. You can say you've said that to my members. If you now want to extend it to me that I'm out of order and all that, let's
Also tonight,
I've asked the Chief of Staff to work with the Ghana Education Service to allocate and evacuate food that is currently held in warehouses in Teman.
2 days after President Mahama's directive to dispatch emergency food supplies to schools following shortage, checks reveal schools yet to receive food as heads continue to struggle to feed students in their care. Details as the concerned National Council of Parents Association steps in, directing schools to use Parents Association funds while the government scrambles to fulfill its promise.
So we just have to keep it that the present work will fast track this process. But we are also urging our PTA school-based executives that they should continue to use the PTA funds to support and complement the efforts of government.
And then coming up as well,
measuring weight, and people are talking about efficiency. We do not see it as the way to go, because if you bring it together under one umbrella, you have then stifled WE or VRA from going their separate way to source of funding.
We'll talk about the renewed resistance to a VRA buoy power measure in any form by workers after Energy Minister designate John Jinapor's justification of the move before the Appointments Committee.
So when you merge them, you have a holding company and 3 subsidiaries: hydro components, thermal components, and renewable components, all under one umbrella, but controlled by both VRA and buoy.
In business, Finance Minister designate Dr. Atforson promises to work with the Agric Ministry to help reduce rising food prices on the market.
And in sports, Ghana Football Association appoints Swedish tactician Kim Lars as new head coach of the Black Queens. We'll bring you details on this very latest.
And Ken, it's time for you to nominate that silent hero making a difference in your community as nominations open for Joy News Impact Makers Awards 2025. I told you all about how to send in your entries.
Exactly, and the world celebrates the remarkable music life of founding member, saxophonist and the legendary Tetsi Osei of Osibisa Music Band, who passed early this morning.
My name is Osei. My showbiz name is Teddy.
That and more in tonight's edition of News Night. You want to join us with your thoughts, your comments via WhatsApp. It's 055-1111-997. You have any comments also, you can leave it on our social media platforms with the hashtag News Night. I am MF Apau.
And I am Kenneth Jesse. Details next.
After the break.
You're welcome back. And tonight, the plans of the NDC government to reintroduce the regional and district tribunals to handle criminal cases is stoking controversy. At the appointment committee on Monday, Attorney General and Minister for Justice designate Dr. Dominic Ayini defended the plan outlined in the NDC's 2024 election manifesto. According to Dr. Ayini, John Mahama's vision is to ensure the public have a direct role to play in the criminal justice system.
In terms of Article 25(1), it is provided that justice emanates from the people and will be administered in their name, in accordance by the judiciary and in accordance with the Constitution. So it creates, 142 creates the regional tribunals, which have coordinate criminal jurisdiction with the High Court, all right, in all respects. And then it says that Parliament may by law establish such, courts and tribunals, that is, inferior courts and tribunals, as it deems fit. Okay. Now, to the question why we want to bring back the public tribunals. We want to go back and align with the internal logic of Article 125, Clause 1, that there must be participation by ordinary people in the administration of justice. If you recall, all the tribunals, district tribunals, circuit tribunals, regional tribunals, had a chairperson or chairman and two who was, mandatorily required to be a lawyer, and two, other persons who were non-lawyers selected from the community. So aside the traditional jury system that allows, ordinary citizens to participate in the administration of justice in a limited fashion, the PNDC, in its wisdom, broadened public participation in the administration of justice through the tribunal system.
Dr. Dominic Ayeni also allayed fears the tribunals will act like they did in the revolutionary era, but will operate in accordance with law and respect the constitutional rights of all accused persons.
The empirical evidence for, a report dated very close to the first quarter of 1992 would have been from the pre-constitutional, era, when the public tribunals were administering revolutionary justice in the context of PNDC Law 1. Now, if you look at PNDC Law 1, there was no human rights chapter. That was the Grundnorm. That was the constitution, the fundamental law of the land at the time. There was no human rights chapter. In resetting Ghana, we will reset it in accordance with the 1992 constitution. And the 1992 constitution is very clear, that the sovereign power of Ghana rests in the people of Ghana, in whose name and for whose welfare the powers of government should be exercised in accordance with this constitution. Governmental powers includes the powers exercised by the judiciary of our land. That includes the public tribunals. I believe that it is not your view, honorable member, that the public tribunals would not or are not part of the judiciary. They are part of the chapter on the judiciary. And so they will be bound by Chapter 5, the human rights provisions, and the entire constitution.
Let's have a conversation on the back of this and speak to former Deputy Attorney General Alfred Tuah-Yeboah and former Director of the Ghana School of Law, Kweku Ansah Asare.
Well, before you get into that, though, Ken, we have news coming in. At this point, we're expecting a lot of appointments. So, gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us. We'll come to you shortly on this, but our Presidential Affairs correspondent has just joined us in the studio, Maxwell Agbagba. We have another set of appointments, this time regional ministers.
Yes, the first batch of regional ministers, 10 of them, we have them here so far, and this is coming from the presidency. So first, Northern Region, we have Ali Adolf John, Northern Region. Oti Region, John Kwejo Japon. Volta Region, we have James Gunu. Eastern Region, we have Rita Akosua Eje Awate. Northeast, we have Ibrahim Tia. Ashanti Region, we have Dr. Frank Amwakuhene. Upper East, we have Akamugri Donatu Satanga. Ahafo Region, we have Charity Gardner. Savannah Region, we have Salisu B. Aworibi. And in Greater Accra Region, we have Linda Oklu. So this is the first batch of regional ministers, 10 of them, and then it goes ahead to give us the profile of those who have been nominated.
Were you giving any reason in that statement as to why we don't have the full complement of the 16 regional ministers but 10?
No, this release signed by the acting spokesperson to the president did not state that.
Thank you very much. That's our Presidential Affairs correspondent, Maxwell Agbagba, giving us details of that first batch of regional ministers. And we have Northern Ali Adolf John, Oti Region John Kwejo Japon, Volta Region James Gunu, Eastern Region Rita Akosua Eje Awate, Northeast Region Ibrahim Tia, the Ashanti Region we have Dr. Frank Amwakuhene, Upper East Region Akamugri Donatu Satanga, Ahafo Region Charity Gardner, Savannah Salisu B. Awuribi, and for the Greater Accra Region Linda Oklu.
Right. Let's take you back to our earlier story where the Attorney General-designate Dominic Ayine has indicated that the NDC government will reintroduce the tribunals. And we have on the telephone line Alfred Tuya Yeboah, who is a former Deputy Attorney General, and also Kweku Asare, who is a former director of the Ghana School of Law. Thank you very much for your time, gentlemen. Let me start with you, former Deputy Attorney General. As a former AG, what are your thoughts on the reintroduction of the tribunals?
Thank you very much, my brother. Yes, I've followed the discussions, and my initial comments are very simple. Regional tribunals are outdated. They are not needed at this time. It is true that in our constitution, there are provisions dealing with the authority of regional tribunals. This is also true that in our Courts Act, there are provisions dealing with regional tribunals. But let's take it. Now, from 1993 up to today, the only regime that actually used or utilized regional tribunals, I would say, was the Rawlings regime. At a point in time, regional tribunals fizzled out. And if listeners will remember, in 2010, the late President, Professor Mills, established a commission to review the Constitution. In the wisdom of the commissioners, they made some recommendations. In the wisdom of the then President, now the President of Ghana, President Mahama, a white paper was issued. In that white paper, the government accepted that regional tribunals should have no space in our judicial system, and that the constitution should be amended to take it from our statute books. So actually, I'm surprised that almost 34 years, we are seeking to, almost 32 years, we are seeking to bring back regional tribunals.
I'm curious though, Mr. Tiamwa.
The reason why I'm saying we should not bring it back.
Mr. Tiamwa, just quickly, a quick intervention. Did we successfully expunge it from the books? Did we?
Pardon?
I'm asking if we're successful in expunging it from the books. You talked about 32 years ago.
As we speak, it's still part of our constitution. I consider still it is part of our constitution. But in 2010, the same party in government set up a commission of inquiry. The commission came to a conclusion and made some recommendations. The same party, with a certain president now, being the president then, issued a white paper, accepting by saying that regional tribunal should not form part of our constitution. And that is one of the provisions that we need to amend. So why are we trying to bring it back now to spend taxpayers' money in setting up such courts? What are the reasons? Now, the judiciary draws its expenditure or its income from the consolidated fund. As we have it now, the high courts are dealing with all matters. The judges in the high courts are paid by the state. Unless this introduction is an attempt to create more layers so that we can spend more for the taxpayers' coffers. Otherwise, I see no need.
Okay. Mr. Former Deputy AG, I'll come back to you, but let me go to Kweku Asare. Kweku, with the reintroduction of the tribunals as hinted by the incoming AG, would you say that's good news?
Not at all. Let me make this point clear. Under the Constitution, Parliament, under Article 126, Clause 1, Paragraph B, will be entitled or shall be entitled to establish such lower courts or tribunal as Parliament by law established. This clause has not been amended, and therefore I'm sure that my good friend Dominic Ayine, had a look at it before making the pronouncement, but it will not augur well, for the Mahama government, and for the people of Ghana, for a number of reasons. First of all, in 1981, 1982, when the tribunal concept evolved, there was no constitution. And therefore, Rawlings could do as he pleased. Today, we have a constitution. And the preamble, to the constitution, is clear that we, the people of Ghana, in exercise of our natural and inalienable right to establish a framework of government, we shall secure for ourselves and prosperity the blessings of liberty, equality of opportunity, and prosperity. And then we have a whole chapter 5, devoted to fundamental human rights and the protection of everything that we are enjoying. Thirdly, we have the Western type court system that has been with us since the 1830s. We've practiced the Western model since 1830, and we are still in love with that.
Okay.
Why would the Mahama government try to bring back this atrocious, obnoxious, canker? It was evil. The tribunal system was very evil, and the people behind it were described as, devilish. Why would they want to do that?
That means you do not support it at all. You want them to pull the brakes and suspend it, at least.
I don't support it. In fact, it shall be fiercely resisted. Mind you, we have an Article 2, which enjoins any person, who feels that his constitutional, right is being threatened, to go to the Supreme Court. And if they try, so a person who alleges that this is going to be invoked, and it will make Mohammed's work very unpleasant, that every now and then people will go to court, to, fight in defense of the Constitution and to uphold our socio-cultural values as a nation, as a people. Now, I know, I concede that the Circuit Tribunal, the community tribunals were established, under the Constitution, but the Courts Act was amended to take them away. The regional tribunal, a lot of the functions of the regional tribunal have been transferred to Yoko. So, I think the regional tribunal, is moribund. Nobody, is dead. Is awaiting a decent, funeral and burial. Now, any, step to reactivate them will be safely resisted. I don't think, it is a right thing, for a government that is riding on the tidal waves, of Ghanaians, should all of a sudden bring this back. I think that we are being ill-advised.
Okay, Mr. Ansa Asare there, thank you very much. He's the former director of the Ghana School of Law. But I still have the former Deputy Attorney General, Alfred Tuya Yeboah, with me. Alfred, you were raising concerns that this appears to be an avenue for more money to be distributed. But what else are you picking that we are not aware of?
Yes. Now, if you look at the tribunal system, they rely on panel members. Now, if they decide to go that way, it will mean that they have to appoint panel members. And these panel members will have to be paid. Now, when it comes to decision making, as we have it now in the Constitution and the Court Act, the tribunal will sit with 3 members, with the judge presiding, and then 2 other members, or they can be 4, 6. And anytime they have to take a decision on a matter, is by majority. So the 2 lay people can overrule the judge. And we have to go on appeal. This system, in this era, where you have a lot of lawyers. In fact, those days, in the 90s, in the 80s, we had only few lawyers in Ghana. But in Ghana now, we're able to produce not less than 1,000 lawyers in a year. So on what basis are we going to say that we want to introduce tribunal system?
But how about But how about the justification also, that the concern actually that there's a lack of trust for the judicial system, for which reason this tribunal system is being introduced? It is a no-no for you when it comes to that as well?
I mean, you don't have any perfect system anywhere. Judiciary, as we have it in Ghana, may have problems. But is that the way to address the problems? No. Now go to the courts in Accra and in the regions. Judges sit and they write with long hands. Well, we have to be thinking about how we can modernize our courts so they can work efficiently and effectively. It does not lie in creating more layers of court, where we are going to have a judge sitting with two non-lawyers or non-judges and they'll be passing judgment on people. Don't forget that now we have the jury system. And even with the jury system, there's a strong argument for it to be abolished. Why? Because you have 7 ordinary Ghanaians like you who sit on a matter, that's no problem. Mm-hmm. But look at the time that they spend in hearing case. Sometimes, if one of them dies, you have to start the case de novo. Even with that, if one of them is not able to attend trial on a specific date, the case does not proceed. Do you want us to go back to that system where we have 2 other members who join a judge, and then you go today, one of them is not there, you have to again, or one of them dies, you have to come back? I mean, it's a system that we must not even be taking. It's so weird.
Right. Okay. Alfred Tuayeboa is a former Deputy Attorney General, and earlier we heard from Kweku Ansa Asare, who is also the former director at the Ghana School of Law. MFA, we're going to Parliament now.
Well, we'll stay a while longer there because we know that there was also some justification given to the oral committee chaired by Samuel Okujeto Ablakwa. Well, there have been concerns about the constitutionality of that. We heard Dr. Dominic Kayene justify that. But of course, yesterday at the Appointments Committee also, we saw that the minority leader, Alexander Afenyo-Markin's display at the hearing of the Appointments Committee has become the subject of talk and public discussion. Well, the Futu MP's conduct, we've been told, has been described by some as disruptive, while others have said he was simply doing his job as the leader of the opposition. Here's exactly what happened.
While he was not one of the persons nominated to be vetted, Minority Leader Alexander Afenyo-Markin became a central highlight of Monday's sitting of the Appointments Committee. His tussle with Chairman Bernard Ahiafo and occasional clashes with the majority members of the committee has since become the talk of town.
You're right, no problem. You will listen to me, Chairman. You can't say you've said that to my members. If you now want to extend it to mean that I'm out of order and all that, let's have.
The minority leader first started with a lengthy remark at the start of the vetting process, which the NDC likened to a press conference.
This thoughts is unacceptable. Now, post-election violence and national security.
Mr. Chairman,
and
Mr. Chairman, please.
Honorable Mama Yerga.
Okay. With all due respect, for the minority leader to use this platform as a press conference, I think is not the best.
The minority leader then clashed with the NDC MPs, who he accused of being intolerant.
You would always want to have your say, but you don't want others to speak. That is your problem, NDC. That is your problem.
There was a sharp response from the majority chief whip.
What the minority leader said about NDC being intolerant or they have been more cooperative is totally untrue.
Later, Alexander Afenyo-Markin said he believed as ranking member of the appointment committee, he is the co-chair.
What our standing orders is trying to say is that there is a presumption of a co-chairing of this exercise.
No. There's only one chairman. We don't have co-chair of this committee. And the rules of this house is that we allow the chairman to lead us and direct everybody so that we can have an orderly business. It is as if he is not respecting the chair.
After several intense back and forth, Alexander Afenyo-Markin walked out.
We are here to guide you.
Then you guys should do your things since you are your majority. If that's what you do,
we are to guide you.
He returned after a few minutes. His referral to some of the guests of the nominees as foot soldiers also drew the anger of the NDC.
I referred to some of our citizens sitting behind the nominee as foot soldiers who were brought here to make noise. I take an objection to that. Foot soldiers brought myself and the minority leader here. So their presence at vettings cannot be a nuisance.
Bernard Ahiafo, who is new to the appointment committee and now chairing it, has received considerable backlash from the public, with some arguing he he failed to rein in the minority leader and take charge of his committee. Kweku Asante for Joy News.
That's our Parliamentary Affairs correspondent, Kweku Asante, with that report. But let me take some brief comments from Dr. Rashid Rahman, Executive Director, Africa Center for Parliamentary Affairs. Many thanks for your company here on Newsnight. So it's just day one of the vettings, and many are already describing Alexander Afenyo-Markin's act as very disruptive. But isn't that what is expected of a minority leader?
Well, I mean, that's what is expected, MFR. The Appointments Committee over the years, for me, has become, if you like, a theater rather than a place for very sober reflections where we have our senior and very well carefully selected MPs who go to sit there to ensure that those we are entrusting with the responsibility to lead the affairs of our country are people that can really do the job. Look, why is it that, I mean, year in, year out, whenever we hear an argument between the chair of the Appointments Committee and a member, it's usually people from opposite parties. You know, why is it that the committee, if it is really minded to do a job that is for this country and that is not partisan, they don't have, if you like, maybe a kind of pre-committee meeting where they have a very clear legislative strategy in terms of how they are going to handle nominees. We see them come in and it's NDC versus MPP. I think that we are not getting the value that we are looking for in this very important committee, which is one of the few that we see in public. And when people say parliamentary committees are the engine rooms of any legislature, it means that is a place where very serious work is done and the theatricals are left to the plenary. But we are seeing our MPs transfer these theatricals to very important committees like the Appointments Committee. And for me, I think this must stop. This must stop. I think they need to get their act in order, MFR, and try to put aside their partisan considerations and an effort to score political points. They should go and do the business of this country and make sure that the people that have been nominated by His Excellency the President are people who can really do.
Okay, we are grateful. That's Dr. Rashid Rahman, Executive Director, Africa Center for Parliamentary Affairs. It's time for business with George Yafi. When we return, we'll talk about the food situation in the various senior high schools, plus the renewed resistance to a VRA Bui power measure in any form by workers after Energy Minister designate John Jinapo's justification of the move before the Appointments Committee. Ken, let's bring in George at this point.
Exactly, George.
Take
over.
And then
you're talking about food. The Finance Minister designate, Dr. Atuforsen, has also been talking about what he'll be doing together with the Agric Ministry to try and keep prices of food at a very, very low level, as well as control inflation. Also, the Bank of Ghana highlights impact of the gold purchase program in expansion of the economy and stabilizing the city over the past months. The business news on Newsnight is brought to you by MTN Business. Welcome to the new world of business. Kingdom Books and Stationery, Synthesis Tanks and Pepsodent, Herbal and Charcoal. You're welcome back to Business on Newsnight. Now, Finance Minister Designate Dr. Atuforsen is promising to work closely with the Agric Ministry to help reduce rising prices of food on the market. The minister gave this assurance when he appeared before the Appointment Committee of Parliament. There is more in this report.
Engaging members of Parliament's Appointment Committee, Finance Minister Designate Atuforsen noted that this might be one of the surest ways to help bring inflation down to appreciable level.
As Minister, I will allocate resources in consultation with Cabinet to government policy of agriculture for economic transformation to make food cheaper. That in itself will help make food available. We will work with the Bank of Ghana to reduce inflation to 8% plus or minus 2. In the shortest possible time. And how do we do this? From the fiscal side, we will front-load fiscal consolidation.
However, There are some who have argued that the challenge with inflation may not be just about food and their prices, but also an element of government spending. Therefore, containing expenditure might also help. Cocoa prices have hit record levels in recent times, and Finance Minister Designate has revealed that he is committed to ensuring that farmers in Ghana get fair value for their produce in the coming month. Meanwhile, the Finance Minister Designate has revealed that government could be paying $1 billion every year as debt repayment for Eurobond holders.
And that is a business text report. Meanwhile, financial economics Professor Lord Mensah has maintained that giving greater attention to checking inflation could be one of the best ways to help fast-track economic recovery. He's been reacting to some of the policy proposals by the Finance Minister Designate.
With focus on exchange rate stability and inflation means that to forcing, appreciate the channels through which we get our inflation numbers in this country. And we all appreciate that. One of them is through Forex, which I call it imported inflation. If it's able to stabilize the exchange rate and then be able to control inflation, we should be able to have stability in prices on our market. And so if that is his focus, I think he appreciates, the economic dynamics.
Financial economist Professor Lord Mensah. So what has been the response coming from the business community on the policy proposals pushed forward by the Finance Minister Designate Dr. Atuforsen? Mark Bedua-Boakye is Chief Executive of the Ghana National Chamber of Commerce and Industry.
Propose a number of measures that are, for me, if it's able to do them, it will help us. He indicated that managing the economy is not only at the macro level, but the micro level is critical. That's where the businesses are. The macro level will create the environment, but the micro level is the productive sector. How is going to support the productive sector to expand and also to employ more people is also very key. So just the combination of the micro and the macro is good for every economy to succeed. We have concentrated over the years with the macro, with the inflation, leaving the micro. And if you want to reduce inflation, you need to look at the micro, you need to look at the agricultural sector, you need to look at the manufacturing sector. If you want to stabilize your currency, then the manufacturing sector and the productive sector should also be supported so that you don't import the goods that you are importing because they will be produced locally.
Mark Bedua-Boakye is Chief Executive of the Ghana National Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Now, the Bank of Ghana has indicated that its gold purchase program played a critical role in the expansion of the economy for the third quarter of last year and the city stability over the past months. The Bank of Ghana in 2021 rolled out a program aimed at buying more gold locally to support its reserves. It's now put at about more than $9 billion. Bank of Ghana Governor Dr. Ernest Addison noted the program might have been one of the best things that helped in stabilizing the local currency.
We've always underestimated how much gold that we had. Now, from this program, I think we can see, since we started, we've almost bought $9 billion worth of gold. Where was all of that gold going before? Anchor. And Anchor really holds things, right? So that's the fiscal anchor. In addition to the fiscal anchor, you also need the monetary anchor so that the liquidity is properly managed from the monetary policy side. Now, these two anchors are what will hold the price level, right, as well as the exchange rate. So you need both to work together to deliver the stability that we are all looking at.
Bank of Ghana Governor Dr. Ernest Addison. Now, Senior Manager for Tax and Regulatory at Deloitte Ghana, Gilbert Yurinchiadu, has admonished small and medium-sized businesses to take advantage of available incentives for startups and young entrepreneurs by studying Ghana's tax laws. He spoke on Joy Business Advisory Series, a 2-week program aimed at equipping small businesses with the financial and business development insights for the new year.
Fortunately, you could see the drive based on how the tax law is structured. It's geared towards manufacturing. So for those who find themselves in those sub-regions, we have what we call the Young Entrepreneurship Tax Incentive. These are tax incentives that are given to young people who are below, or they are up to 35 years and below. And you're expected to be in this stream of business activity. Manufacturing, information and communication technology, if you're into agro processing, energy production, waste processing, tourism, Tourism and Creative Act, Horticulture and Medical Plants. Basically, these are the stream of the activities, and you are granted a tax exemption for a period of 5 years. If you find yourself in any of this region and you are a young person who is 35 years and below, you just have to notify the Revenue Authority with the requisite documentation to show that you're a young person who is into this business venture for you to be able to take advantage of this tax concession.
And Gilbert Chiado is the Senior Manager, Tax and Regulatory at Accounting and Financial firm Deloitte. Now, the Joy Business Dialogue Series is live on the Marketplace. Joy News every day at 1 p.m. Now, tomorrow, our guest will be coming from the Manager, Strategy and Operations at KPMG. That is Madam Annie Eduforson. We'll be looking at enhancing customer experience, best practices for businesses. Will be at 1 p.m. Joy News on Marketplace as we find ways to help these small businesses, equip them with the right information on how to start the year right. And that's all for business on Newsnight. Back to you. That is, let's do sports, right? With Musbah.
I'm just curious why you keep mentioning sports like that.
There's this guy on VOA that does sports news, and that's how he says it. That he says sports.
Wow, interesting. It's a very important sector, so we have to. Okay, well, quick update coming in is the Black Queens. They have a new head coach, and the Ghana Football Association made the announcement just some minutes ago, and it's Swedish tactician Kim Lars Boykagren. He's been announced the new head coach of the national women's football team. Now, Kim, he's a seasoned coach with nearly 2 decades of experience, and he'll be taking over from Nora Hoptel, whose tenure ended in December following the expiration of her contract with the Ghana Football Association. Now, the announcement was made in a statement released by the GFA, except of which I have for you, and they said that they are looking forward to the new head coach using his attacking philosophy to help the Black Queens, particularly with the women's AFCON that is coming up this year. Well, the statement added that Kim's journey in football, which began as a player in his hometown club in Sweden, he managed to go on to coach quite a number of top teams. Among his achievements, in 2017, he was crowned Swedish Women's League champion with Linkopins, and also he won the First Division Championship in Cyprus and also became the best coach in the Cyprus First Division in 2020-2021, and he is looking forward to transform the Black Queens. So, MFA, that's the new Black Queens coach, a Swedish tactician. Yeah.
And definitely there will be some resetting and transformation. Okay, we look forward to that.
Yeah, so we'll see. We'll be waiting for his first press conference. Then we can hear from him what he's got for the Black Queen. So that's the update I have for you from the quarters of the Ghana Football Association.
Well, thank you very much, Razak. A few of you have been sending in your messages. This is from Philip Abochi from Keta. He says those nominees must work hard to lift the image party and Ghana, as we the youth must get jobs under this government. At Keta, the incoming MCA should be mature and have expertise in development. Nana from Spintex Road also says Afenyo-Markin must be made aware that he's not doing his party any favors at all. Some of us thought he would have learnt his lessons from running to the Supreme Court if any coughs and ended up shutting down Parliament. MFA, these are some of the messages we've been receiving.
Let's head to the senior high schools now. At this point, Ken, and schools are facing severe food shortages and are still waiting for relief over 48 hours after President Mahama directed the dispatch of emergency supplies. Well, despite Charles's plea to the Eswal Akufo-Addo government to delay reopening due to unpaid arrears from 2023 and insufficient supplies, schools reopened on January 3.
And no meals have been served at all, and government has been meeting the heads of the school. We will bring you details shortly, but first let's listen to President Mahama, who spoke at the National Prayer and Thanksgiving service at UPSA, where he tasked his Chief of Staff, Julius Debra, to oversee the nationwide distribution of supplies from Tema warehouses.
We have a challenge currently with feeding students in secondary schools, as the Ghana Education Service insisted that schools must reopen on the 3rd of January, contrary to the advice of the Conference of Heads of Assisted Secondary Schools. As a stopgap measure, I've asked the Chief of Staff to work with the Ghana Education Service to allocate and evacuate food that is currently held in warehouses in Tema. This food was imported by the outgone government in response to the drought that occurred last year. But in this emergency, we need to use some of that food to feed our students.
So we'll get to find out a bit more why the food has still not reached the senior high schools. But we've been hearing from the National Council of the Parent Teacher Association. The General Secretary for the association is Govt Kofi Raphael.
The government has given directives. We all know that when government issues directives, at least the best time that you can assess whether the directive has worked is within a minimum of within a week will be the best way we can do an assessment. But we have also been following and we've been taking signals. But we are also urging our PTA school-based executives that they should continue to use the PTA funds to support and complement the efforts of government. You know, whatever was in the system was being rationed because there was no hope anywhere. But we've also told our PTA executives across borders they use the available PTA funds to augment the feeding situation in the various schools.
Right, let's have a conversation on this, and we have Dr. Clement Park, who is a former deputy ranking member on Parliament's Education Committee. Thank you very much for your time this evening. Do we have any indication when these foods will be distributed to the schools?
Well, as directed by His Excellency President John Dramani Mahama, the Chief of Staff has since convened a number of meetings. Meetings were held with representatives from the Ghana Education Service as well as the Ministry of Education. After that, he held another meeting with the national leadership of the Conference of Heads of Assisted Secondary Schools. Just this evening, we concluded a meeting laying out and mapping out the arrangements to ensure that the rice that the president referred to at the port is conveyed to different parts of the country for onward distribution to the schools. As I speak to you, I'm aware that the Chief of Staff, working with the Ministry of Finance, is working to get some agent funds disbursed this time directly to the heads of the institutions for them to procure the other food items necessary to ensure that our wards in the secondary schools are properly fed and nourished so that they can pursue the purpose of which they are in school. But safe to add that the erstwhile Akufo-Addo MPP government, having failed to heed to the call by CHAS not to reopen schools in lieu of the lack of provision to take care of the students, went ahead and compelled the schools to be reopened without providing a dime for their upkeep. So as I speak to you, the president and the government are clearly on top of issues.
Well, it's been 48 hours. The president and the government may be on top of issues, but the indication we got from the National Prayer and Thanksgiving was an immediate release of that food in the warehouse. Do you know when exactly the students will get the food?
Well, you know, the food has to be transported. So the food is available. All clearance has been given. What is happening now is to arrange the haulage trucks to move the food items from Tema to the 55 centers from where the food will then get to the school. So that is ongoing, and I'm very confident that within the next 24 to 48 hours, we should be speaking about the rice having arrived at the needed destination.
We are grateful. That's Dr. Clement Park there, giving us some updates on when exactly that food will arrive in the various schools. But in the meantime, there are some silent heroes in your communities that you need to nominate, because the Joy News Impact Makers Awards nominations for the award is open as we speak. Yeah?
Exactly. And is it at Greg, Health, Education, Science and Technology? The Joy News Impact Makers Award is inviting all of you out there to put in an entry for a national recognition of that individual who is changing lives. We will be telling you how to do that shortly. But first, listen to past award winners on what has changed since receiving that recognition from your home of independent, fearless, and credible journalism.
I never knew people were watching some of these things we're doing, and it brought tears to my eyes, but not just the tears, because the tears showed me that indeed somebody has done something that has touched my heart. And Joy News, I want to say a very big thank you to Joy News and the impact makers, those who have come together to do this, because honestly, we are just ordinary people trying to make impact in our own little way. To recognize us gives us the strength to push on, and not just us alone. Imagine me sitting here. I've become a role model to a lot of young people in the Upper East. This has really encouraged me.
And that's why you have to be a Joy News Impact Maker. Nominate that hero in your community right now. It's time for the Geeks. Well, we've lost Teddy Osei today, but what are we talking about on Geek Squad?
Did you set any New Year resolutions?
I've stopped doing that.
You have?
Yes.
No goals?
Every day is a goal. I have a goal every day. Every single day there's a goal to achieve.
Interesting. Yeah. Tonight on Geek Squad, we want to talk about some tech goals that our listeners can set. Something like reducing your screen time, for instance.
Very important.
You see?
How can we do that?
You see?
I'm glued. I'm glued to you right now. Well, Edubia and the team are ready. Ken, let's head out now and leave you with that report from Jacqueline and Smayapwa.
May so rest in peace.
Osei was more than just a musician. He was a pioneer who put African music on the world map. Born in December 1937 in Kumasi.
My surname is Osei. My showbiz name is Teddy. My life started in Kumasi.
His love affair with music began early, experimenting with instruments as a child and later learning the saxophone in secondary while trying to form a band with his college friends. Before fully embracing his musical calling, Teddy briefly worked as a building inspector. However, his passion led him to form the Comet, a band that laid the foundation for what would become his life's work. In 1969, he co-founded Osei alongside musicians from Ghana, the Caribbean, and Nigeria. The band's fusion of Afrobeat, rock, and highlife was revolutionary, earning them global acclaim in the 1970s. Hits like Sunshine Day and Woyaya became anthems that celebrated African identity and culture.